Today's meeting at the White House between the President of Ukraine, a European delegation, and United States President Donald Trump will set the future direction of talks with Russia and may pave the way for a peace agreement. Washington, acting as mediator, will present the offer made by the Russians during the meeting in Alaska. It is known that territorial concessions by both sides are involved, but security guarantees, which are of the utmost importance to Ukraine, are also on the table. Volodymyr Zelensky's official meeting in the United States could significantly influence the history of Ukraine.
Mr. President, thank you very much.
At the same time, it is a conversation with one of Zelensky's closest associates in the United States administration, who has flown to Kiev many times as a special envoy.
I've got a meeting.
At the other end of the spectrum is another advisor to the United States President, Steve Witkoff, who has been responsible for relations with the Kremlin in recent months. It was he who dropped the bombshell about security guarantees just before the visit of the Ukrainian president and the European delegation to Washington.
The United States is potentially prepared to be able to give Article 5 security guarantees, but not from NATO, directly from the United States and other European countries. That is big. I mean, really big.
For Kiev, this is one of the most important elements of the security architecture in the peace negotiations. Zelensky wants Washington not only to mediate the talks, but also to guarantee future peace for Ukraine.
It's an honor to have the president with us.
Will they be involved? Will there be soldiers on the ground, as in some countries? Do we have the opportunity to obtain a modern number of air defense systems? These are just questions for now. We really want to get an answer to understand what the security guarantees are. What you are talking about seems to me to be a signal to the other side that they will not continue to occupy us. But, to be honest, so far these are just words, and at the level of a trilateral meeting, we are ready to talk. As for the White House, I am determined to be very productive in a good sense, in every sense of the word. Expectations are high, especially since even now, in the face of a potential end to the war, Putin brutally reminds us what this diplomatic game is all about. 5 people were killed and at least 20 were wounded in recent airstrikes on Kharkiv. On the other hand, as both analysts and politicians emphasize, there is no other way than diplomacy. The most important thing today is the terms of the negotiations and ultimately the peace agreement.
This war in Ukraine has been going on a really long time now, 3+ years. Hugely impacted the Ukrainians, who suffered hugely, but it's also impacted Europe, it's impacted every single family and community in the United Kingdom. And so everybody wants it to end, not least the Ukrainians. But we've got to get this right. We've got to make sure there is peace, that it is lasting peace, and that it is fair and that it is just.
Stop killing civilians!
Since the beginning of his presidency, Donald Trump has emphasized the need to end the war. The meeting in Alaska, widely reported in the media around the world, is assessed by most in terms of what the United States did and did not gain. However, there are those who see the risk that the American president has taken. He risked his political capital to put his ego aside to meet with one of the most disliked and toxic political figures of our time, with one goal in mind: to save lives and stop the war. As a Ukrainian veteran, I appreciate the president's courage and efforts to bring about lasting peace. The condition, at least according to US media report, was to be territorial concessions. Ukraine would have to cede the entire territory of the Donetsk and Luhansk regions to Russia. For now, however, as politicians involved in consultations ahead of the White House meeting emphasize, this is out of the question. There is one point that President Trump rightly noted. Russia seems to be prepared to negotiate along the so-called line of contact rather than along administrative borders. This is a huge difference because Russia claims rights to territories that have not been militarily occupied by Russia. This was, of course, the subject of discussions during the night, and according to President Trump, Putin agreed to negotiate along the current front line. Kiev has so far strongly rejected the possibility of territorial concessions for peace. This may change in the face of direct American involvement in security guarantees for Ukraine and significant military support for the Ukrainian army.